Hi, I'm Rich Gallagher. Welcome to Sweetwater Soundcheck. We have a special guest with us today. It's Rick Knockby from PreSonus. Great to see you.
Great to be here.
It is always a pleasure to have you visit us, especially when you bring cool new toys.
That's what we like to do.
Yeah, so this is the new flagship digital mixer from PreSonus. Tell us what's going on here.
Well, this is the new StudioLive 64S, and it's the largest in the whole family of Series 3 consoles. It has the most amount of DSP that we've ever put into a console, and it features the new quad-core FLEX DSP mix engine. And really it has, of course, as the name implies, 64 channels, but it's actually a total of 76 mixing channels. And so as you can see here, you've got, the first layer of 32 channels 1 through 32, then you can bank over to the next layer, which would give you 33 through 64, and then the last layer gives you your effects returns and your aux inputs. And it also features a lot of local I/O, so even without stage boxes, you've got 32 mic line inputs on the back. You've got 16 flex outputs, which are flex mix outputs, can be configured as aux outs or subgroup outs or matrix outputs. So you have 16 of those, all on XLR connectors on the back. And then it also features LCR outputs, so left, right, and a center channel. And the center channel can be a dedicated center channel, or you can also use it as just a mono subgroup output with individual channel control.
Wow. So you've really stepped up the I/O for the console.
Absolutely. It's a big thing because a lot of people, had told us that, they were running up against like right, 32 is not quite enough. And, the cool thing about 64 is that you can expand it as you need. So, right out of the box, you've got 32 inputs, but by adding the NSB stage boxes, you can expand it all the way out to 64. Now, the other thing that we've expanded is the outputs. So I mentioned these flex mix outputs, so you can see them right here. You've got 16 on the first layer, so if I hit this button once, that would be flex output 1, and so if I hit it again, you can see it goes to the next layer, and now you're looking at flex mix output 17. And so you've got basically one layer of 16, and then when you hit the button another time, you've got the second layer all the way up to 32. And then if you hit the main mix button, you go back to the main mix.
Super easy.
Yes, it really is. And then in addition to that, you also have double the number of effects processors. So all of the Series 3 consoles have 4 stereo effects processors. The 64 has 8. Wow. And not only do you have 8 effects processors, but they all each have their own effects bus. So what that means is that you can use all 8 effects processors simultaneously without having to give up your auxes.
That's pretty incredible. So you still get the full complement, and then you also have the 8 complete setups for the effects as well.
For your effects.
Yeah, very cool. Right on. So that's where a lot of that extra DSP power is going then, those extra effects processors?
Well, yes, you have, double the number of effects processors, but I'll tell you something else we did. So one of the cool things about the Series 3 mixers is that they feature the ability to have state space modeled plugins on any channel. So what that means is, in addition to just kind of the regular EQ and compressor that you also have your choice of different modeled EQs and compressors. So as you can see here, this is kind of a vintage British style EQ. I can also, go to like a tube-based EQ here. Same thing with compressors. You have the standard compressor, and you also have vintage kind of tube limiter, as well as a FET style compressor. And what's great about these is that you can use them on all of the input channels, but now with the new S update that affects all of the Series 3 mixers, you have these on all of your outputs as well.
Nice.
So why is this cool? Well, you can EQ and compress, let's say, your drums individually with their own individual settings, but then I can create a stereo subgroup using, 2 of the flex mixes, and then I can assign my drums to that stereo subgroup, and then I can have an overall EQ and compression for the drum mix, for example.
Nice, nice. So it really lets you achieve those studio type of effects even live.
Absolutely.
Because you can now work on the outputs as well. That's really cool.
Yep. Now the recording capability has also been greatly improved with the 64S and all of the Series 3 mixers. Now we have the ability to record 64 by 64 via USB.
Wow.
And so, you know, just with a single USB connection to my computer, I can record all of the input channels as well as play back tracks from the computer on any of the new consoles, including the 64S. And then you also have an onboard SD card that you can record multi-track up to 34 tracks to the SD card. And the beauty of this with the 64, even though you have a total 64 channels, with the 34 channels, you can pick any streams you want. So you could have a combination of single channels plus subgroups plus auxes. Any input stream that you want or output stream can be recorded to the SD card.
Right. So you just take the SD card out, take it back to your studio, and pop it into your computer and you're mixing.
That's right. And so basically when you get home, you can, plug in your computer. You get Studio One Artist with all of these new consoles. So you have, plenty of different plugins and editing features there. And one of the plugins you get with Studio One Artist is the Fat Channel plugin, which gives you the native version of these plugins that you're running on the board on your live show.
Nice. So you can just go back and forth one to one.
Absolutely.
Thus the StudioLive name that you've always had for these consoles.
That's exactly right. And this really allows you to get both the benefit of, recording your show live and then also taking it back and making a great recording.
Right.
Now, I'll tell you another really cool feature, and this is something we got a lot of requests for, and that is we now have introduced user profiles with the new board. And what that means is, if I'm kind of like the head engineer at a church or a club or a theater, and there's going to be multiple engineers that are going to be using the board, you can now set up user profiles for all of the different users. And so basically, I'll show you how this works. You just hit the home button, you hit the user profiles button, and now you can see you've got an admin login and then you've got various user logins. Now the admin login will basically give you control over the entire board. You can do anything you want. But then you can set up different user profiles for different users that maybe you don't want them to have access to certain parts of the board. So for example, if I pick this user 3 right here and I go to their user profile settings, I can just go here to edit permissions and I can say, okay, I don't want this guy to have access to the house EQ. I don't want them to have preamp control. Maybe you don't want them to change effects types. And then the other thing that you can do is you can set a maximum level limit for any of the outputs. So let's just say, in this instance, if I was, the head engineer at a church and the youth group wants to come in on Wednesday, maybe I don't want them to have full access to that master fader, right. So they blow something up, right? So we can go ahead and, let's say, limit this level limit. And now you can see, when I log in as this user, you can see the master fader basically only goes up so high.
Right.
So they try to push it up and it goes back down. And the beauty is digitally, as soon as they get to that point, whatever point that you had basically made it to be the max, the audio will stop even though the fader kind of goes past it. So this is the beauty of having touch-sensitive moving faders, is that they're not going to fight you.
Right.
But this is a really great way to be able to kind of give different people control. Now I'll show you another really cool thing about this. Let's just say if I log out of this guy and I want to log in as another user, you can set up a password up for each user so they can essentially log into the board, and then you can also associate a project or a scene with that particular user. So that way, when they log in, it'll load whatever scene is their scene, and it'll have their settings in it. And again, since they're a user and not the admin, they can have access to only what you want them to have access to.
Really nice, really great security feature, I guess, if you will. And it saves you from having to basically come in every week and redo the board.
That's right. That's right. It makes it really easy.
Right. So I'm assuming that this is like all of the StudioLive consoles where you can control this from a mobile device and individual musicians can have access as well. Does that all work with this as well?
Absolutely. Actually, PreSonus was the very first digital console to introduce iPad mixing back in 2008, 2009, and that's something that we have definitely wanted to keep supported. We also added Android support, so on iOS or Android you can control the mixer, and then of course, just like normal, you can set up permissions for different users to have access to what you want them to have access to.
Nice. Nice. And I'm assuming, like the other consoles, again, this also has the virtual sound check capability?
Yes, absolutely. So you can not only do a virtual sound check by playing back multi-tracks from a computer, but you also have the ability to do a virtual sound check straight from your SD card. So you can see we have this sound check button right here. So, you know, I can basically walk in with an SD card from last week's performance, put it in, hit the sound check button, pull up tracks, but it'll also pull up the scene that was associated with that particular band.
Nice.
And now I can basically hit play, and it'll have the tracks playing through the console, and then I can walk around with the iPad, get an idea of what it's going to sound like in the room. I can also walk up on stage, listen to different people's wedge mixes or in-ear mixes, and kind of get things set up before the band even shows up.
That's such a great way to work. It really makes sound check so much, the real sound check versus the virtual sound check, so much faster when you can do all that advanced work on it. So one of the things that's always been very powerful and very popular with the StudioLive consoles is the support for different DAWs. Is that in the StudioLive 64S?
Absolutely. So, of course, we have native support for Studio One. We also support Huey and MCU. Currently, we're supporting Pro Tools and Logic, but we're going to be continuing to add new DAWs as time goes on.
Awesome. So one other question I had for you is, with the SD card, can you simultaneously record to that and to USB so you have an instant backup?
Absolutely. So both the SD card and the computer work simultaneously. And so you can record 64 channels simultaneously to the computer while at the same time recording 34 channels to the SD card. And remember, those are not just individual channels. They can be any combination of subgroups or matrix or, you know, any of your auxes you can record as well.
Right, right. Absolutely amazing. And the other thing I really like about these consoles is, you know, we just stepped up to it here, and I've been watching you, you know, push the buttons and pilot the console, but I feel like I could run it now. I mean, the layout is so simple, and it's so clearly labeled, you can just see exactly what you need to do. So congratulations on that, because that user interface has always been such a strong feature of the StudioLive consoles.
Thank you. We really do take it seriously, and you know, making a product that is powerful but yet simple and easy to navigate is really what we wanted to do. And the 64S is really going to be, I think, a great addition to the family.
Absolutely. So cool. I appreciate you bringing in the new flagship and taking the time to show it to us today. I'm really excited about this console.
All right. Thanks so much.
You bet. Great to see you.
Awesome.
All right. And thank you for joining me for Sweetwater Soundcheck. I'm Mitch Gallagher.